You're listening to Seasons of Bling. Hello and welcome to the second episode of Seasons of Bling, and a special shout out to any new listeners we have. My name's Bill Mason, and I am the owner, operator, designer, web guy, packer, shipper, everything at holidayslane.com, where I make by hand beaded and sequin decor pieces such as decorative eggs, as well as ornaments for pretty much every holiday throughout the year. I also do a little bit of hand-painted wood ornaments, not as many as the sparkly ones, but I hope to get back into that a little bit more this year. This podcast is on YouTube, so you can certainly watch, but it's meant really for you to sit back and listen. So don't worry about seeing anything because there's nothing for you to miss there, but you can watch if you want to. I do like this format a lot better than recording and editing videos because they take so much time. We're here, I can just sit down, have a chat with you. Hopefully you feel like it's a conversation. That's the intent, and it's just a little more relaxed. Like I said, like it a little bit more. In today's episode, I thought we'd talk about what my process is for coming up with the different designs of ornaments or eggs that I have. And I think I could summarize my process in 2 words. It depends. So when I started out, I did a lot of one-of-a-kind ornaments because early on I wasn't really sure where the best place was for me to receive my supplies. So I did a lot of scavenging. I used things maybe not how they were originally intended, a lot of jewelry pieces, and I do still use that to some degree, but I also didn't buy things in bulk, so I might only get 8 of something or 12 of something, and I can use that on a single ornament, and that was fantastic, but after that it's just hard for me to replicate it. So I'm certainly in a position now where I am looking for opportunities to make purchases more in bulk so I can repeat the same type ornament design over and over again, particularly when it comes to my DIY kits, because I want to have a good amount of them available for you to make in case you wanted to buy multiples or give them as gifts, or if there's a pattern you really like. I want to have that available on an ongoing kind of evergreen kind of basis. So shifting my purchasing to getting from wholesalers certainly has helped in that regards. But I guess the way I approach an individual ornament is pretty much the same, whether I'm making one or a bunch of them. From a ornament perspective, I guess you can break my style into 3 different types of ornaments. One of them would be the Czech glass beaded ornaments. The next would be my ribbon and sequin ornaments, and then finally solid sequin, where it's just a ball covered in sequins. For the Czech glass beaded, they have 2 different types, and it's either going to be a solid color, so it's the same bead that I've applied to the entire ornament, or some kind of multicolored mixture. So the solid ones are pretty simple and straightforward. I look for colors that would pop off of a traditional green Christmas tree. So I try to avoid green colored ornaments much. I've done a couple of them because there certainly are other colored trees now. It's really amazing all the different colored artificial trees that are out there. There's whites and pinks and blues and rainbows. So having all the colors available is important, but still ultimately I think most people are looking for more of the traditional sparkly colors. So your golds and your reds. Purples are incredibly popular. I think if you're a purple person out there, I see you, and I'm here for you. They certainly seek out the purple items. They're excited about them. Now, when it comes to the multicolors, they can have anywhere from 3 or 5 different types of beads on one ornament, and the beads themselves actually have a lot of different finishes to them. So what I mean by a finish is it could be an opaque bead, it could be a translucent bead, it could be a matte bead, there could be a little bit of almost like marbling to some of them. And whether the bead is entirely in like translucent but maybe different colors, or you're mixing in the translucent or the matte, I think I don't like to say it's random per se, because it's not entirely random, but the pattern that gets applied to the ball is relatively random. I usually pour the bead mixture out, and then I just one at a time apply them to the ball. So I do my best to try not to have a lot of the same bead in the same area. I like to have them all mixed up wherever possible. Inevitably, am I going to have 2 or 3 that might be next to each other that are maybe all translucent and then there's like mats around it? Sure. But for I guess purists, there's not going to be 2 of the ornaments that are exactly the same. I mean, they look basically the same, but it won't be the precise pattern from one ornament to another in the same color mixture, which is kind of cool. And if there's ever colors that people are looking for, like, oh, we want more of a bronze or more of a Southwest aesthetic, they can certainly reach out to me either through the website or on my Etsy shop, and if I have it, I can make it. Those are usually the most attention drawing when I'm doing a in-person craft fair. Those are the ones that people first gravitate to because it's reflecting off the lights, super sparkly, and people are drawn to sparkly things, which is nice. So that's the first type that I do, and again, it's just, do I like the color, and how's it make me feel, and then I apply it to the ball. The other one are my ribbon and sequin ornaments, and I think that might be a little more where I started. I do generally lump them into some type of style category. So whether it's traditional Christmas or a woodland type rustic cottage style, or something from the ocean, a nautical style. But they all start with generally one element, and then I build up the ornament from that one element. So it could be, some of them have little, like either ceramic or glass little toppers on them, and it could be built around that, or there's a particular ribbon that I got that I really, really like, and I build the whole ornament around that. I start with something and then just go from there. And then depending on that feel, that vibe, that style, that'll dictate not so much the color of the sequin, but the finish of the sequin that I pick. So your traditional Christmas ones are usually, for me, going to have the metallic, the hologram sequins that are super sparkly, that really reflect the light a lot, more vibrant colors. And most of them usually do start with the ribbon. So whether it has a printed snowman on it or something along those lines, that's usually the starting point for the traditional ones. Or if I'm just trying to get certain colors like a red and gold out there, I I like seeing ribbon in person. In order to make the purchase, I do some ordering online. I've started shifting to that, but if Joann Fabrics at the end of the season has their 80% off or buy one and get 5 free, that's when I go in and I will hit up multiple Joann's and I will clear them out of a particular style. So my supply closet basically looks like a Michael's craft store or a Joann craft store. When it's a woodland rustic, that's usually when I'll pick a more matte, like a satin, or maybe a light iridescent type sequin. It just looks nicer next to the more rustic ribbons, and a lot of time those are woven ribbons that might have printing on it, or a cross grain, something that has a more texture to it than what you find a lot of times in the traditional Christmas. And then the ocean ones usually are obviously blues. Well, not obvious, they are blues. And those are usually driven by some kind of topper. So whether it's a starfish or one of those floating, I don't know what they're called, like the round kind of buoys. And then some kind of, anchor ribbon or something like that for those. And I'll try to do a nice mix if somebody's looking for, rustic. You have a couple different deer design to choose from, or maybe it's just like a woven ribbon and that kind of vibe to it. So I guess I'm creating collections. So you have a few to choose from based on a particular style. Like I said, that one all starts with one item, and it's all built around that one item. And then the third one is just sequins. And in those cases, I try really hard to look for very unique sequins that the average person maybe wouldn't have seen before. I generally don't do just a solid, like, gold sequin, or even having just 2 sequins on the same ornament. So that means sometimes getting printed sequins. So I have some that are polka dot sequins, where maybe it's a white sequin with black polka dots, or the reverse of that. I have some that are a clear sequin, crystal, with white sequins or white polka dots on it. And once the entire ornament ball is covered, it really has a super unique look to it. And then I have a bunch of sequins that are printed that have swirls to them. I know that like that paint pouring has gotten fairly popular over the years, where you pour paint over a particular object and then you wait for it to dry. It kind of has that vibe to it, but definitely a very unique, interesting look overall when it's finished. Um, and that, also is just driven by, as I'm placing my order for my, I'm going to do air quotes, regular sequins. I always browse the weird categories and see if there's something fun there, and try and get it. But for all the sequins now, I get large quantities from my wholesaler. So in a bunch of different styles, and there are so many styles and finishes to sequins that I had sort of no idea that all these existed. And if you're interested in hearing more, maybe I could do probably a whole episode just on sequins of the different shapes and styles and finishes and all that. So if it's something you're interested in, let me know in the comments, and I'll do that in a future episode. Um, and that's how I make my what I have primarily, which are the round ornaments. Um, and I used to do sequin bells, but the company that manufactured the foam shape doesn't make that foam shape anymore. Um, I know that there are some other foam bell shapes that are out there that I'm just not as happy with. They're much softer. It's a different curve to the bell, I guess you could say. So I don't really like how the sequins fit on it. I've tried them, just not as happy with those. So every once in a while I write the company and be like, hey, are you going to make it again? You just lost a sale. Hey, are you going to make it again? And who knows, maybe one day they'll get tired of me and we'll just make a batch, and then I could place the order. That would be fantastic. Um, and then the other type of ornament that I do make, really, I think, is what kick-started the company. And they're the satin wrapped ornaments. So those are also usually a foam ball that it starts with. And then they literally wrap silk thread around it, usually 2 times. And those are the ones that, if you think about, I've talked about this before, and I got a little bit of slack, but I mean this with love. The tacky 70s ornaments. That's where I started, and the way I approach those is very much the same as the ribbon and sequin ornaments, where in that case I'm starting with the color of the ornament itself, because they come in a bunch of different colors. Those are, whites, reds, greens, blues, almost any color you can think of. I even got some really fabulous. It's a metallic thread, so it's either a black with a metallic rainbow thread, kind of both wound together. Those were really pretty. And for those, since you're starting with the ball itself, I do generally have a different type of ribbon that I use for those. So most of the ribbons that I have are what is it? They're 3/8 inch. And then there's even smaller ribbon, almost like if you've ever wrapped a present and you have that curly ribbon, that you cut a long piece and you take your scissors and you kind of uh, rub the scissors, so it makes it curl into little spirals. It's that width, but usually more of a woven kind of ribbon, or gold. Sometimes it has some texture to it. That's the main ribbon that I use, because I'll wrap that around 2 times, and that creates 4 panels. Very similar to the ribbon and sequin one, but it lets me add all of the different jewelry findings to the ornament, and you almost have since you have a smaller surface to work on, you can easily kind of create a pattern that you can repeat in those 4 places. And that's where the jewelry components definitely come in. Or if I'm lucky enough to come across any really old components on something like eBay, where there's like a filigree kind of, I don't know, a little circle or oval or something like that. Because they used to make tons of these components in the 70s, and there were a lot of kits that were available. There are paper foil designs that were out there. Some were metal, a lot to choose from, but no, I don't think anybody makes any of that anymore. So it's hunting, pecking, finding, and you usually need 2 to 4 of the same item on the same ornament. The balls are the easy one. The one that I really love, and it seems like whatever I really love is what the manufacturer stops making, but there's one style that's called a drum. And I've had people at craft fair say, "Oh, that looks like a little Christmas cake," but it is. It's like a little drum shape. So most of my the work that I do is on. Well, no, I'm gonna take that back. So yes, around the sides of it, and then sometimes I'll do work on the top and the bottom of it as well. Have like columns of beads that are coming out of the top or the bottom, and that's a mixture of acrylic beads, sometimes wood, not as much, and they all casually have a name of like pushpin ornaments or just pin ornaments, because what I generally use to attach the beads to the ornament itself is, a long, like 2 or 2.5 inch pin that has a pearl end, and then I guess I'm a little bit retentive. I try to get it very symmetrical, and sometimes that takes a couple times of pushing it into the foam. So I glue once it's in the right position. I pull it out just a little bit, glue it, and then push it back in to hold it in. Because depending on how all these ornaments are stored is really going to depend on how long they last. So if they're stored in an uninsulated attic, and you're in an area that has a lot of temperature variation, so really hot in the summer, really cold in the winter, the foam ball is going to expand and contract along with the temperature. A lot of these are glued in place with Elmer's glue or super glue, but they're not like archival. they're not going to last forever. And that's one of the reasons too why when I send out my orders, I put all my ornaments in a little cellophane like treat bag. That way, if any of the components do fall out, at least you're not losing it in a box. You're losing it in a bag, and you can just re-glue it yourself, which won't hopefully happen for many, many years. But at some point, you're going to loosen some of these pins, and the possibility of some of it falling out does grow. Like I said, particularly if you are storing them somewhere with a lot of temperature variation. Um, the satin wrapped ones are more prone to that. I don't know why. Maybe it's what they use for the middle, because all of these, when they start off, are super light. I mean, the foam balls are just almost nothing, and then once you start adding things on, the what I'm really I'm a very tactile person, or at least I'm becoming more tactile, where I like writing on paper again. That's one of the reasons why I enjoyed painting so much, is I like touching and feeling things. There's a definite change in the feeling of that ornament in my hand when I get about 3/4 of the way through. It's almost like a light switch goes on after a certain number of elements go on. It's like, oh, okay, this feels like an ornament now, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk to you all about today, is what kind of goes through my brain as I am sitting down with all of my components. Uh, I know before I even start making some of these, what I'll do is I'll just lay out maybe a ribbon, and I'll pour some different sequins before I put anything on the ornament, the foam ball itself, and just see what they look like together. I do have some test balls that I call them. Doesn't sound very good, but where I might just, pin a couple onto it, just to see what it looks like before using one of um, the actual balls I'm going to use for the ornament. Just again, because then I can just keep pinning, and not worry about it getting loose on the final ornament. So that's fun. But anyway, thank you very much for listening to me today, and make sure to like this video if you like it, and subscribe if you want to hear more behind the scenes from me, Bill Mason, at holidayslane.com. And I also have a mailing list. I send out newsletters 2 times a month usually, and then at the holidays a little bit more. But the big item that I have for my newsletter is at the end of the month, I send an email with a list of all the holidays that are coming up in the month ahead. So like April 29th, I would send it out for May, because every single day has some kind of holiday, whether it's National Cheesecake Day, or an actual holiday that most people celebrate, something like Independence Day in the United States, which is why I like to say at Holidays Lane, every day is a holiday. Thank you, and I hope you have a great day.
head on over to holidayslane.com. That's holidays with an S, where every day is a holiday.